Good morning. I'm not going to share too much today, guys, just because I'm trading 3 accounts, so I wasn't going to stream, but whatever. There's some pretty good odds right here during this window. Hi. Like I said, I'm only focusing on whatever I'm focusing on. I'm trading 3 accounts. You guys either tune in to whatever I have to say, or we can talk about individual names later. All right, so 6790.50, 6790.75. These were more calculated ranges. I wanted to see if they'd kind of test them around this point in time here. I do want to see if they can clear this back to retesting 96. 9699 is essentially the overhead here. We're still looking to target that 05, 08. I don't have them marked, but the areas are closer to 08. I haven't done too many range calculations today, though, so these were just like the previous targets that we had. But from opening range, they opened at 6, 7, 8, 850. So that gave us really good odds that they would hold 6, 6. Okay, even though they did take this beneath the 17-point ratio, they still held the 22-point range. Okay, so 22 points here exactly from highs, from opening range to lows. So I would say 96 actually, Brendan, because 96 is more calculated. Like where they stalled overnight was basically them not testing the area that had to be taken out. It's closer to like 96, 9625. So if and when it does take out 94, I would much rather it clears directly to like 96, let's say. And I haven't really measured from here, but I'd imagine that these areas are 34. Do you see that? 9875 to 32-point ratios. Yeah, they are. So I think that area is a little bit more calculated around like 96, 97, 98. Even off like the lows from last week, that 115.5, which is a third of 346, is also that range. The 173, which is half of 60, 346, is also around 97, 96. So not that we don't have to take out 94, we do, but if they come to test 94, we don't want to stall at 94. I feel like we'd have to have some relative strength around this this area here, and we'll see where they can get by too. So really nice 22-point hold off open. They've already broken 22 points here too, so this break right here, that's why 8-8 wasn't quite enough, because we do want to get back over at least 50. These areas were more calculated from last week, but this is setting us up to basically get ideally a 34-point break today. If they give us back 33 points, we basically retest 6,800, which was last week's highs. 34-point break would just slightly break last week's highs. We could get stuck right here a little bit. Since they held 22 points, I'm assuming that we probably have better odds of getting a 44 to 46-point break today in terms of range. So that would imply that we've got some odds, guys, to get to our neutral spots today, which is the goal. Like we're trying our best to target 05, 08, the 10. Okay, these spots in here, and 44 points in range is around that area anyway, so that's the goal. But even if they only give us 6,800 today, that's, or 60, yeah, 6,800 today, that's still fine. MARA had some reduction sticks here, and now reversing back. That one had some really good range off the lows. XOM kind of reversed a little bit here, but still holding off the calculated range. I want to see if it hold off 114.32 to 114.25, because this is kind of the midpoint. Basically, it stalled just beneath that 114.84, which is a pretty big spot on this one. Wanted to see if it would maybe Try sustaining this calculated area here. Okay, since there's a 2002 retest here. Okay, let's see what kind of, are you guys okay if I start deleting some of the flips? We still haven't closed above 6790.75 yet. We do have to get some closing ranges here for this to progress, okay? So let's just see where they close this by noon. Ideally, I do want to be above these areas here. Like I know 6788 is more than enough, but ideally above 90.5 is a little bit better. It's more calculated with the actual open closing ranges. Good morning. NQ had some pretty decent holds off that 24,928. So NQ would probably be the same thing, maybe a little bit similar. I didn't get to fully do all the ranges here, but you can kind of see like a 22-point break. 143 probably is the overhead on this one here, close to here. I haven't updated the ranges on that one in the last few days. Well, if we look for like a 286 break, it already got that technically from like overnight range. I don't know why it's not letting me select this. Like basically this area here. If you're looking for like 214, 222, it already broke that. That's these ranges in here. This was more off like the 143. Do you see that? This area here. And these are kind of the cleared areas. This is the 222 to 24. There's definitely some overhead in these ranges here. I just never marked them. And I was thinking this could hit the 286 range today. So if it does, we're essentially looking for around here, 70 or so. And I figured from like, you see this, like where it kind of stalled, where it held. So this area here is definitely quite calculated off those lows. Do you see that? Where it's stalling right here is off like a neutral spot, so it's not. Because if we're working with 22-point ratios on ES, we're likely working with something very similar on, which would be like the 286. Does that make sense? So if I'm measuring off my actual calculated spots, like so right here, okay, like around that 24,952, 953, this area here. I know it breached it a little bit Friday, but that's fine. Like this is the overhead. Does that make sense, Euro? Because we're still measuring off 24, whatever it was, 24,952 to 24,957 areas from last week. So this would be the 44-point range. It's like 286. Basically off this area here. Whereas like off the 5.7 overhead, it needs a little bit higher than that. Not by much, but just a little bit. But there's definitely some overhead in this range here because this is off our 5.2 and 5.3 spots, which were really big areas for us last week. And I think if they give us that kind of range, this is where they can start getting those better structure breaks off the open. So like closer to here and potentially to here. So yeah, I would be looking for around like 20, 25, 270, 271, I think on this one today. This was a decent hold right here, like off this range right here. But there was some slight breaches. Do you see this? So I would mark that 25,125 on your charts too. They didn't quite get this at that area at 12, but that's okay because they still closed above before 12. Do you guys see this? Can someone document that? ES closed above Izzy's calculated range of 6790, 6790.75 ahead of 12 p.m. So that means the structural flips are trading above this for the next period. So this is a good close. MARA getting a retest here of that 2009. There's some odds around 1205, so we'll watch for that. Intel stalled exactly around that 3872, guys. That was the big target. And you can kind of see, look, it held exactly around that 3571 down here. So that was, and that's where the big gap is. Like if you kind of just delete all of this in between, the big areas on this were 3617. Do you see this? Look at this. These are the areas on Intel, okay? On this big gap break above this range. Look, so that could easily be headed to 3904 and that 41 mark today, or not today, sorry, this week, because these ranges are holding super nicely. Let's see, this one had some odds at 05, so I do want to see what happens in the next 2 minutes. XLM still holding off here. ES kind of just stuck around here. And off the actual session open, okay, they basically just broke 22 points around here. You can see like this would be 32 points off open is exactly that high. Okay, so that's like a 17 or 16 point ratio, which we want to get at least 17 points to help us progress. So that would be closer to like 3.334. So there's a chance that even if they take out the highs today, do you guys see how it could be just slightly? Like if they take it out, it could be like around 6,800, 6,800.5, 6,801, 6,802. There's a lot of overhead around that spot there. Unless we see like really constructive price action around that spot, which we could because they held a 22-point range off open. That's the only way that they could maybe see like a break to these neutral spots here around like the 12, 10, 08. Okay? I would imagine, though, that they wouldn't do it all in one shot. Like, even if they did take out 6801, 6802, I would think that they'd probably end up stalling that range. MARA getting a nasty stick back down. That's a lot of reduction in that stick. What is that, 21 cents? Okay, hold on. 2026 to 2019 is where there's a ton of overhead on this one. So I'm not surprised that they're stalling 2009 because it's kind of like just beneath that. And you can see all these reduction sticks that they've been having are basically what could get it to 2018, 2019. And there were some odds at that 05, so this was the reduction ahead of that flip. And bringing it back to that 1981. We'll see where we're trading by mid-session. I would say that if they can retest, my thoughts were to retest this 96, 97 area by mid-session. Okay, so if they can get back to this range here by the mid-session, so mid-session can occur as early as like this period here. Ideally no later than like 1 o'clock usually. Which is why it could be a slower type grind. Crypto broke highs on my flip dates, guys. I don't know if you guys saw this. I had some flips right here on the Sunday and today, and it broke those high ranges. To what spots? So I'm getting some nice sticks here with some volume this time too. Thank you. We planned that like 2 weeks ago too, which is the crazy thing. For those highs to be retested, we analyzed that back here like end of September. So this, I mean, you'd probably want to hold off that 1952 this time. Like you since they never took out 1979 last week on Friday, or even like throughout the week, I wouldn't really consider that the major support range. Probably closer to like the mid area between 7.9 and 5.2. So like this area here, you probably don't really want to get back beneath 6.662, but technically speaking, it could afford some risk down to 5.6. And that's a lot of reduction, especially off that 05 flip, because they had odds at 04, 05. So that does count as a reduction period here. It's quite a lot too. And that's probably close to these 2050 targets. So since this could be a very slow type session, I would expect them to reduce range a little bit. Like, we didn't really have any odds between 12 and 12.18 anyway, so like there isn't really a window here for them to have taken out range. Hence taking it like back and forth a little bit. I still want to try sustaining above the 8.1 to 8.2 area though, in terms of retesting, because I feel like if they bring this too low, then odds are going to be very low that they can get it to 9.7, 9.6 by the mid-session. So sustaining closer to like 8.4, 8.5, 8.3 is going to be a little bit better for odds. Tesla getting some stick breaks back over that 446 mark. So Tesla basically on Friday held off that, like this had a really nice reversal back to these ranges here, like that 428. Remember how I said they need to kind of bring this back over 432? Look at these pre-market gaps here. They brought it right back to that 436. This is the heaviest overhead. Held 43286 and basically brought it back to these calculated ranges. Especially right at open. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is a very calculated area for Tesla. And then kind of stalling that. There's not really much overhead here once it kind of clears above 448 to like the 450s. So. All right. ES window reopens, guys, at 12.18. Hence this stick back up. So that's why I wasn't really expecting them to take this lower, because they have odds as early as 12.18 to come back and retest. Does that make sense? So if they would have taken it any lower than this, especially by like the midpoints here, then odds were pretty low that they were going to actually come back and retest. So them turning it around at 16.17 makes total sense. So it's pretty obvious that by the 12.18 mark, we want to at least try retesting the 67.90 area. Does that make sense? We can also maybe watch the 2.1 mark in here, kind of the midpoint between the 24 area. These are the earliest odds, so they're not super high, but because they're resetting conditions, it's basically like just bringing it back to this area here before the mid-session window around 12:30, 12:48. Make sense? X1 retesting. The big overhead, I think, is closer to that 6970 mark. MARA is trying to hold off that 1949, 1952 area. They didn't really close beneath 5.2, even though they breached below it. That was the area that I said it could afford some risk to, so 5.1, 5.2. It did breach just slightly beneath 4.9, but not too bad. So any reductions off the 18 stick is what's going to keep delaying this. Can you guys document the reduction stick for 18? Because I would say 2 points is definitely enough to have brought us back to 90. See if they can try negating some of that. Microsoft had a pretty good day today too. This one we never really looked at too much this morning, but the 524, 525 areas were the spots we talked about last week. Apple's kind of just stuck in an inside range today, so I would still keep this one on high watch for tomorrow, okay? Especially if they keep Apple stuck here. It would be better if Apple stayed stuck in these ranges today for a better setup tomorrow. So kind of like beneath 259 but above 255, closer to that 257, 258 area. We're gonna watch mid-session on this one too. Did you guys see the defense off of 6-6 down here, by the way? Do you see this? And it didn't just go directly to 7-1, it went all the way through 7-4. If they had a bit stronger defense there, like let's say back to 7-8, then they probably would have already cleared the 9-4 area at this point in the day. Tesla getting some really nice stick breaks on Tesla after coming back over that 446 mark. I didn't fully track in here, but technically speaking, if you track off lows, okay, are you guys watching? There is some overhead here, so whether or not you want to mark that is obviously up to you, but do you guys see it? These are like off the actual lows that occurred down here. So what's the low here? 416.58. 416.58. So maybe some overhead right here. 448.91. Okay. Some overhead here on Tesla around 4876.91. That's kind of in line with the highs, or the lows, sorry, from last week on that 32 to 33 point ratio. I just want to double check something though. It's right around here. I guess you could mark that 9.6 if you want to as well. What did we say it was? 9.6. Okay. Oh, oops. Alright, ES trying here again. So the next odd was, there was a better odd closer to 2.4 anyway, so this reduction here at 18, you still have the odd of coming back to retest here by 2.4. XO, I'm getting those stick breaks that we're looking for. I want to see if this one can take out that 114.84. I was looking for a 115 break on this, kind of closer to like 115.32. This was a trade from last week off 111.30, 111.75 or 70. To 6,800. Well, it depends if they want to make the range limited or not. Technically speaking, they have 2 days. There are higher odds today, but if they limit range to 60, they could limit range to 68.01, 68.02. These are some max ranges potentially for today's session. If they do that, then probably not. If they extend to 68.05, 68.08, 68.12, then yes. A lot of it's relative to what they do by the mid-session here. What's your mid-session conditions? This is how I know who actually pays attention and who doesn't. What are the conditions for mid-session? These are some pretty calculated spots on Tesla that could bring this back to 453, 455. So just worth watching here. Yeah, 9.4 is not enough though. That's too low. Going to 9.4 by mid-session does absolutely nothing for us. You want to get to at least 9.6. 9.6, 9.750 area. Yeah, exactly. So you need to hold 8.3, 8.4, 8.5. That range there would be good. Ideally, like closer to 8.5, 8.4. You want to take out 9.4 and test at least 9.6. Kind of depends on how much range they test during mid-session. If they test closer to like 9.875, 9.8, and you achieve those ranges. So that's why that question, like, you could technically retest highs by mid-session before 1 o'clock. That's what would give us higher odds of getting like a full, you know, break this afternoon. But if they end up stalling these areas here by mid-session, then they could compress this a little bit over the duration of 2 hours. There's pretty good odds though that they can test this area here by mid-session, so we'll have to see. See if Tesla tests this range by its mid-session. I think that could help ES in terms of relative strength here. So let's start with these conditions. We definitely have to close above, clear above. If we can do this by, so the 2.9 would be the same thing as this this 5.958. Do you see this? This right here, it's like the midpoint of 1230. So 2.9, like you see how the 2.8 stick was brought back above 67.90.50. Are you guys listening? This is the same thing. So this period here is equivalent to this period here. So probably want to come back and try retesting by the midpoint of the noon session and maybe progress, even though there's better odds of like breaking to 9.4, 9.6, closer to like 12.36, 12.45, 12.48. You want to at least try getting back to the midpoints by the mid time interval. Okay? Thank you so much for the sub. So let's see if they can at least, the condition for like 12.30 I would say is at least to test and close above this 6790.5, 6790.75. So far they're doing a pretty good job. Do you see this? Can someone document this? 12.30, 12.29 opening and closing at 6790.75 to the exact penny, 6790.50. These are really calculated ranges from last week. This is also the midpoint of the noon session. I do want to see if they reduce range here or if they extend, because this will give us an idea if they're going to continue to delay this through 1 o'clock. You can kind of see the volatility coming in a little bit. Do you see this? That's some more reduction here. And that's probably enough to have taken this back to retest this high of 1.25. Yep. And the overall range was 1.50. That could have easily taken this out. This implies a delay, but it still met the condition because it closed above that 7.5 at this point in time. So it's actually a little bit more progressive than the 59 stick was, because 59 closed at 50, whereas the 2.9 here closed at 7.5. Even though it doesn't look great, this is actually more progressive than this stick here, but still implies those delays. 6790.75 goes ahead of 1230. Tesla stalled though, right? Well, Tesla still tested this area but didn't take it out. Okay. See if they bring it back around here. You could also watch the midpoint for 1233. Even though there's, I didn't mark 1238, but we should mark that because the highest odds around mid-session are usually between 1236, 38, 44, 48, like this period here. So I would expect there to be the best odds around this point in the day. Okay. So we could maybe watch Tesla retesting here off the 3.3 midpoint too. Tesla was a bit earlier though, like 1228 on this retest, so maybe you could see a closing break ahead of then. Do you guys see how they're kind of just keeping this a little bit consolidated? In the sense that they're well aware that they only have to meet so much range today. Like they don't really have to go too much higher in the session. So if that's the case, and they still have half the session remaining, that's what can make this super slow. Okay. MARA getting a really nice break here ahead of 1236. These are some midpoints here on this one. See, like this is a nice midpoint stick between 1230, 1236 at 3.3, whereas this was a little bit stuck. This was stuck. Let's see what kind of retest they get on this one here. I'm going to reset some alerts though on this one. I want to set this 9.7 spot. Also, you'll start getting much more progressive price action. Actually, I should ask you guys, when will you start getting more progressive price action? When you do what? Each reduction has been about 1 to 2 points. When will you start getting more progressive price action? What do you guys think? When will you start getting more progressive price action? Nope. What do you normally have to do before you test, though? You guys always think too far ahead. That's your issue. Yeah. If you're consolidating above 8.8, right? Once you start forming a better base closer to the 8.7, 8.8, your odds will start to increase. So you definitely want to start trying to make like some slightly higher lows and make them a little bit more progressive around this area here. So okay, if mid-session is closer to 1236, 1244, 1248, this is probably the window that you at least want to start forming a better base. Does that make sense? So if you can start forming like a higher base closer to here instead of here or here, you'll have way higher odds of actually getting a nice proper structure clearance break. Okay, taking out this area and basically retesting here. It's also the same thing as like the range differential here. So this should be around that 2.25 points, which seems to be pretty common today. And this is probably linked with that 9.4 spot. Do you see it? Do you guys see that? Whereas if you sustain closer to like this 90 area, okay, and that's a little bit more calculated, you probably have higher odds of getting 9.6, 9.7. Do you see what I'm saying? These areas here are more linked with this area up here, okay? Sustaining off 8.8 is more linked with getting back to 9.4, which is why it could be very slow because we haven't even built a base yet around 8.8. So far this base makes total sense that it's testing this range in here, okay? Let's see what they do here. Off the 3/8 stick. If this gets reduced again, then I could see this being delayed till past 1. Notice though that these sticks are getting, even though it doesn't look progressive, pay attention to the 3/8 stick versus that earlier stick at 18. Do you see this? Okay, versus the sticks at 3/4, 3/5. So even though it doesn't really look progressive, it technically is because it's now reducing a little bit lower, and we obviously have higher odds around this window here. Do you want to be trading beneath 6, 7, 8, 8 though by, let's say, 12, 42, 43? Nine four stalling here. I want to see if they take out 9.7, 9.9. That's a little bit of a midpoint overhead here. No, probably not. Because that's really going to reduce odds. And likely imply those delays. That's a good point too, because technically speaking, they still have a little bit of room to go lower if they want to, but and that's what would imply those delays. Does that make sense? So like since they still had some room to 8382, and if they're delaying during mid session here, that's what could keep us extended all the way through like till the 136 windows, which is where we could see compression on the session today, where maybe they might limit range to like 60, 6800, 6800.5, 6801, 6802. Does that make sense, guys? This period here is supposed to help us determine what kind of range we could potentially get on the session today and how long they want to maybe delay us or compress us. Whereas if they form a better base above 8.8 after this point here, then it's still setting us up nicely for some of these structural breaks, especially around this point here. Because if they hold it a little bit higher, they'll use this range on upside basically. It gets recycled. I think we're going to hit our 126 mark, guys, today on Bitcoin. Today's the flip date. Google's testing highs? I'll be right back. Yeah, unfortunately, I like the single shot ones the most, so I always have to brew two. Why do they do that? Why do they make the single shots taste better? It's because they're more expensive. Okay, this is not looking too bad, guys. They did a really good job taking it back above 8-8 here for 4-4, 4-5. And a decent stick for 4-7, giving it some odds here at the 4-8 and 50 mark to see if they can try clearing here ahead of 1. And Mary's kind of just getting stuck here. Tesla's retesting here off 4.8. Did ES test 90.5? No, it didn't. Okay, so not much time left on this stick, but that's okay. The window's around 4.850. Shoot, I don't have a spoon. If they start reducing again here, this is how we'll start figuring out that they're going to keep this quite compressed today, okay? MARA getting some reduction here too. I think that would have been enough to probably get it at least a retest of that 9.7 mark. The market's definitely stalling a bit. Well, not really, because they still held 8.2, 8.4, and they still tested 90.5, so it's not like, if they didn't close above at this point here and this point here, this here basically extends you till 1. So it just keeps, no, we haven't hit max range yet. This could just imply some delays. They could basically do this exact price action for up to another hour, essentially. And that would be if they want to limit range to here, okay? Versus like potentially giving you a push to here. Does that make sense? We're basically trying to determine, guys, if they want to cap us around this area here today, okay? Or if they want to give us a break above 02, closer to 05, 08. I'm thinking that they probably want to limit us a little bit today, but we'll have to see. I don't hold Tesla over the weekend usually. With 67.50 on SPX, so that's the same thing as getting back to 9.6, 9.5. So for NQ, the ranges would be around this 178, 182. Yeah, Oracle moved this morning with MU and with AMD. It's the same exact ranges, guys, that we've been using, so you could just keep recycling them if you wanted to. On Oracle, where's the template for this one? I don't know where my template is. I'll have to look at it later, sorry. I don't know where the template is. And I want to see what happens here for the 1 o'clock period. I'm sure if you look in the chat, though, you could easily find the spots that we were trading around last time. I don't think any of that would change. Like, I know 328, 325, whatever they were. Maybe it's this one. Oh yeah, this 28524. Wow, that's like a perfect hold this morning. So probably has odds of getting back to here. This is probably the 50% of that range. Where it's getting stuck. It broke that. It needs back over 295. Honestly, my weekend was super busy and I didn't have time to really do anything fun. I just worked. And then I'm renovating my room a little bit. So I was working on that. Like, removed my mirror. Changed a few things. Changing the knobs on on my dresser too. I was gonna get rid of it, but honestly, it's a nice dresser, and you can't really find like real wood like this anymore, anyways. So I figured I would just fix it, see what it actually looks really nice. I'll show you guys when it's done. How was your weekend? I know, and I was like, honestly, it would be like kind of silly to just get rid of it, you know? Like the mirror on it is kind of old fashioned, so I took off the mirror and just put like a different arched mirror, but I figured I would just maybe, the paint is still in really good condition too, so I didn't even have to paint it. I figured I would just change the handles maybe, and that could just give it like a completely refined look. I'll send you guys some pictures in Discord. On like a mock, I guess, of AI, of like how it would potentially look. Kind of like this. Because I changed the knobs from black to this. What do you guys think? Mine is a little bit bigger than this though, so it would be more like this, because it is bigger. And I don't know if I'm gonna do the glass top or not. I might just go to IKEA and get like a glass top, but I don't know, I feel like that looks modern but still antique, you know, and it's like way better quality than like the current shit that's in market right now, because none of it's like, most of it's not really good wood, right? What do you guys think? Or does it, like, it is pretty big, but I also still need the storage, so I don't know. Do you guys like that? And then I got some lights to kind of just install maybe behind the mirror, like not like LED lights, but just like a soft white kind of light, just to give it like a different look. Mm-hmm. And I did some setups. I'll show you guys. You guys can tell me what you think. Tesla getting a nice break here. Do you guys like that, or does it look kind of tacky? Like, I don't know. I do have to paint the wall though too. Since I'm gonna put thank you. Yeah, I think so too. Of your grandma's house bubbles? That's not what I was going for. I wanted it to be like a mix between modern and antique at the same time. Like kind of classic, but still somewhat modern. I don't like the fully modern look, you know what I mean? Because my bed frame and stuff is pretty modern. My desk is modern. But, I don't know. I didn't really want the desk and stuff, or the dresser and stuff, to be super modern. I didn't want it to look cheap. Yeah, I'm not gonna paint it now. I'm like, whatever, I'll just wait till the spring to paint it. Yeah, it's not full wood, it's like a mix of glass and wood. Yeah, these are just more delays, guys. This was the earliest period, so I could already tell that they're compressing range, okay? Just based on what they did during the period of 12 and 1 o'clock. So this is pretty obvious that they're starting to compress range a little bit. Usually there's some odds just after 1, around like 104, 108. Do we have any auctions this afternoon or no? But I would imagine that they probably still want to keep this delayed at least until like this 130, 136 window. So they're still sustaining though. So what do you guys notice here? If you guys are paying attention, what do you guys notice here that looks a little bit better now? The only thing I don't like though is that they didn't take this above 90.75 before 1, which is what could compress this for the next hour and maybe delay odds until past 2. Yeah, higher lows off of what though? Yeah, it's basing above 8.8, so this could maybe give it a little bit of a better odd here to try getting a retest. Only thing I didn't like is this closing period here. A little too low, which is what could keep it delayed a little bit. But the higher base could save this, considering they held off 8.8 at 1. Do you see what I'm saying? Like this hold right here. We'll see what they end up doing. Yeah, ECB is talking. I did send you guys that yesterday too. Just so you guys have that calendar. Do you guys want me to post that to Twitter? So you guys have it? I don't think you can share pictures here. I didn't put it in the report either. I was going to put it in there, but I was like, whatever. Let me just, I'll share it to Twitter. Can't believe Bubbles said it looks like his grandma's house. Now I want to change the entire look. But that's because it's only showing partial of the room. My desk and my bed and my vanity is really modern. I didn't want it all to be super modern though. Like I wanted the sofa and the dresser to feel more heavy. Versus just like those new very basic plywood types of dressers. You know what I'm talking about? Which walls? The walls are just plain. Probably do white paint or something just to brighten it a little bit. I think that would change the theme because the walls are currently kind of like an off-white. I want to do more of like a white. I think it would make such a huge difference too with just white versus off-white. I'll show you. Not really. So if they don't turn this back around during this period here, I would say that this is definitely going to be at least delayed throughout here. To me, based on what they did at 1 o'clock, and this not being above this range here, I think this could be delayed till past 2 personally, but we'll have to see what they end up doing on that second part of the session. XOM coming right back to this 114.12. That's more of the calculated area and the risk that it could afford to go back to, but I was hoping it wouldn't based on stalling that 114.84. We'll see if they can try turning it back around a little bit. $126K is coming quick. Talked about this 2 weeks ago. This is going to set it up for some... If we can hit that 126.041 today for its flip date, we could easily get to 129. And this is also a 3-bar continuation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so tomorrow's the 7th bar flip on crypto. So I would just mark that because there could be some volatility. What could happen on the 7th bar? What could happen on the 7th bar? And this is pretty important that you guys note this. What could we see happen there? Expansion, right? Or exhaustion, kind of depends on where it stalls. If it expands, I would imagine we could maybe see like a 3K move. Like half the range of like 60.42, let's say. Which should be around here. This would be like the 3K move. If they gave like full expansion, which I'm not sure if they'll do that, but if they did, that would be like closer to like 130, 132. I think that they'll probably range between the 126, 129 first before they go any higher than that, though. That's just my opinion, obviously. NQ coming back to backtest this 25.182. Yes, still trying to hold off that 678.575. I still think that this is delayed based on what they did during this period here. What was I going to look at? I forget what it was. Oh, okay. So we could maybe look to see if they'll get at least a 6790.75 retest before 130. Does that make sense? So it can kind of give us higher odds of potentially getting a 6794 retest. There we go. Some really nice breaks here, guys, for that 121 window. Usually you can get some decent odds. This is also pretty clean, too, that they broke here off 120. Like, took it back to the 50 spot, which can give some good odds now for the 124 period through 130. Can someone document this, please? 121 getting a break here of 6790.75, setting up some pretty decent odds for a test of 9.4 as early as this 130 period here. Izzy thinks that we need to see higher than 9.4 though, closer to 9.6. It would be pretty ideal if they could do it between 130 136, but we'll have to see what happens here. MARA also getting a bit of a turnaround. Crypto getting super close to the 126K mark. I'm just going to put an alert here. This is the first clearance on Tesla too. That's the first open close above. NQ clearings 25,209. XOM kind of failed, but still struggling to come back over 114.32. Still holding off 114.12 though, but it does need back over this range here. I think we could see some sticks here. Really nice breaks, guys, on ES, especially off these areas here. These are the kind of spots that you'd want to be taking out at this point in time. I did take some off here just in case, but I think we have some pretty decent odds that they'll bring this back. Six, 7, 9, 4 being tested here ahead of 124. This is setting up super clean for our 130 period. If they can clear 9.4 at 2.4, I think this has pretty good odds of testing that 9.6, 9.7 area, guys. At this point in time, and then maybe some odds of getting the 6. We don't necessarily need 6799, 6800 retest as early as now, but if we did, let's say, get 6801, 6800 as early as like this period here before 2, then we have some good odds to extend to 6808, 6812 today, okay? Let's just see what they do here for 2.4. What do we want to achieve by that 130 period for this to give us odds of getting some range today? What would we want to see? Hey? No, we need to see higher than 9.4. $9.4 is not enough. It has to be closer to 9.6, 9.7. Before 2, but ideally if they can do it by like 130, 136 period, this will give us higher odds to expand the session. It doesn't necessarily have to be a retest of 6,800 though. But just remember, like if they come back to 6,800, 6,801, that's a 34-point break, okay? So them even getting back to here is 33 points, okay? 34 points is right back to highs. So all-time highs is, basically if they take this to 34 points, they would just break highs by 0.5. Does that make sense? That's why there's some odds that they could get it there and still stall. Do you understand that concept? It would be like a slight break of highs. So that's why there could be a lot of overhead between 67.99, 6,800.5, 6,801 area, okay? And especially if they start stalling around this 9796. So far 6796 stalling at 125. There's a bit of a reduction stick here. From opening range, which was closer to here today, breaking these areas here would also be the same thing as a 12-point break from OR. Okay, this is also 12, 13-point break from OR. So another way to think about this, if you're measuring off today's opening range, is if they broke this area here, that's the same thing. That could give you those odds of a 17-point break, which is 67.0525. And then a 22-point break is what could get you that range of like 60, 68.10. Okay. So far they're reducing range a little bit off 9.6, ahead of 130. What point in the day do we have the highest odds of testing and breaking 9.6? So far they're stalling exactly 9.6. What do you guys think? MARA getting that retest, guys, here. So we could maybe see those breaks for 130, 136 for MARA. Hold on. ES still getting some slight consolidation beneath 6794. What do you guys think? Let's do a poll. Clear 6796, 6797, 50 during 1:30 through 1:36 p.m. period. MARA taking out 2009 here. This is a really clean break of these ranges. Can you guys vote on that, please? Let's get as many votes as possible, please. Because this is essentially what's going to help us in terms of getting max range, stalling, extending, so on and so forth. $20.09 stall here again on crypto. This was the overhead that I had before getting that 2018, 2019, 2032, 2025. Basically, this can get back to 2139. That's kind of the bigger target I had on this one in 23, but this is the first major spots on MARA that I would have to clear. Crypto stalling just beneath 126K. You see that stick break as soon as it closed above here? Look at that on Tesla. What did you guys vote? Come on, let's get some more votes. See if they can get some nice structure breaks here. Some really big reduction sticks on both the crypto and MARA after stalling that 126K mark. I just want to see what kind of ranges these are implying. This is not going to see progressive price action until it gets a closing and clearing stick above that 2009. Reduction stick at 3.2 on ES. So at the very least, you'd probably need at least over 9.4 by the 3.4. Yeah, probably by the 3.4 mark. X1 back to that calculated area here. And some massive reduction sticks. I think I'm going to just leave this one till Friday though. Alright, let's see if we can get some retest here. So what did the majority vote on? Oh, it was tied. Okay. A tie? Well, NQ didn't quite test this range. What do you guys think since it's tied? I do know that 9-6 is pretty heavy, so it makes sense that they stalled there. And if they start giving some like this, you know how I said that if 3-4 is not back above night 4, those odds are pretty low. Look at the volatility coming in at 135 back to that 91 spot. So I would say that the condition for 3-5 would be to at least hold above this 6790.50, 6790.75, and for 3-6 to try to reclaim back over 9-4. Otherwise, this could have some extended volatility through this period. I do want to watch just after this mark here too. Yeah, we looked at that earlier. Microsoft was strong in general in comparison. Apple has more like inside ranges, but Microsoft looked a little bit stronger in terms of the kind of range this one could get today. Especially on a break of like 525 and that structural hold over 521. That was my favorite mega cap stock today. All right, so let's see. They're holding the line here. So do you guys think our conditions for 130, 136 were met? Because remember, we never got the proper closing stick for 1 o'clock, which could keep us stuck until 2, okay? Stuck until 2 beneath what? Yeah, the minimum condition was met. We still tested 6796. What do you mean no? We never cleared it. We still tested it. Okay, so could that be enough to keep us extended throughout 1:48, 2 p.m.? It seems like we have higher odds now to, like I said earlier, around 1, to probably clear after 1 o'clock or after 2 o'clock, just because they stalled this area here before 1. But do you see how and then they came back tested 8.5. But do you see how, I would think that if they would have held a little bit higher here too, this could have been the offset of getting it back to this 9798. Do you get what I'm saying? Your minimum condition was still met. You still tested 9.6. Maybe you don't have as high of odds of clearing 9.6 based on where you closed and opened for 1 p.m. Okay. But you still tested the 9.6 range, which is enough to keep you durationally in play till just before and probably just after 2. Oops. You guys have to get a little bit better at understanding conditions. Did we have super high odds of clearing 9.6 during the 130, 136 period based on where they opened and closed at 1 p.m.? And where they sustained just after 1? No. Okay. Did they at least test the minimum range of 9496 during this period here between 120, 121, 130, 136 p.m.? Yes. Okay. Does that still give you an odd of testing and clearing 9697 before 2 p.m.? I want you guys to answer that. Let's see how good you guys are at conditions. Does that still give you an odd of testing this area here before 2 p.m.? What would increase your odds? Don't get this wrong. What's going to increase your odds? What's going to increase your odds? If you sustain where? Come on. There's like 60 of you guys listening, so I'm sure one of you can answer that. What's going to help your odds? Yalla. You guys are way, way, way too slow at understanding some of the probabilities that you guys have. What's going to help your odds? Yeah, especially above 90, 90.75, okay? If you can hold above this, this could easily help your odds. Do you see that? Is this going to help open up your window again for 4-1, 4-8? Could this help offset this and the failure of opening above, closing above at 1? Yes, okay, so 67, 90.75 being sustained here, right at 135, 136. This can help odds for retesting this 9-6 period here, or 9-6 mark before 2. Especially if they can bring this back around this 141, 145 window, probably before 148. Do you see though how they keep compressing things because they know exactly what they're doing? They opened it a little too low right? Sustained at a perfect price point. That's what kind of keeps things sideways, is they fail to meet one condition but then meet the next. This is usually compression PA until range is reduced. 6790.5 retested here at 144 before the final 15 of this 1 o'clock period. This is where I would think that volatility could start to trigger a little bit, especially ahead of 148 and 150. There's some liquidity coming in here too. I'd be a little bit careful considering they stalled 9496. What do you guys think? I should do another poll here since it was tied. Clear 6796 before 2 p.m. I'm going to set that to 2 minutes. Can you guys vote on that, please? Your risk here is basically if you're not above 9.4 before 4.850, then you're easily back at risk of heading back to this 8.8 range during this time period. So they're kind of battling right off 67.90.50, 67.90.75 here, which is where there's an obvious increase in volatility off this range. Was there news on that stick? Do you guys know? Oh yeah, there is. Let me just share these here. There's some headlines coming out here. These were 4 minutes ago. This was just now. $25% tariffs for heavy-duty trucks coming into the United States. Yeah. Isn't that funny though that it still held 6790.75, 6790.50? But they're still stuck beneath 9496. Do you guys see how calculated these price points are? You have to see it. Especially since we talked about these areas way before they ever hit. Like once you start seeing it in real time, you'll understand why these areas are more calculated. They have to break one end basically for this thing to break. Either they have to take out 96 or they have to take out this 90.5 at this point. Okay, the midpoint now is going to be around 9394. And this is ahead of 2 o'clock. So I'm sure a Trump tweet would probably do it. That would make sense. That guy opening his mouth always does something to the market. So which end breaks, you guys? What do you guys think? Let's see if you're, what do you guys vote for this time? 9 voted no, 7 voted yes. So majority voted that we won't clear 9.6 before 2. Well, my thoughts are if they held this at 4.6, 4.5, and they're retesting here at 4.9, if they can get back over 9.4 here at the 50 mark, there's some decent odds they could at least retest 9.6 here by like the 5.4, 5.5 window. It just kind of depends on getting back over this 6.794 mark. Let's watch this in the 5-second intervals just to see what they do here. 67.96 is the wall on ES. If they start stalling around 9.4, this is what would reduce odds. So I think clearing back above at the 50 mark could help this. This is also a little 3-bar break here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth bar is usually the expansion or exhaustion stick. So I would say getting back over 9.4 implies that it wants to extend. 3 more bars, so 4, 5, 6, 7 would be 5.3. Maybe giving some good odds for 5.2, 5.3. Do you see this? This is the 4th bar expansion stick on ES. On this 150 mark, it was also a constructive flip for the market. That's a break back over this 9.4 mark. Yeah, Microsoft is doing really nice. Microsoft essentially could basically see breaks back to like that 5.30 mark. We'll have to look at that one later. So it seems like there's some odds around this point here, which would be just ahead of 2 o'clock. Plus, majority voted no, so you guys know what that means. I mentioned Microsoft on Wednesday, Thursday, and again on Friday. It looked a little bit more constructive than Apple. Looked good, but Apple looked like it could stall. Does that come back to 90 after that? No. It would just keep odds in play of us getting maybe breaks to 68.05, 68.08 instead of stalling 68.01 or 6800. Does that make sense? It'll help our odds in terms of not getting like a compressed range and being limited to 6800.5. But you can't just take out 9.6. You have to at least test 9.750, like at least this area here. 9.6 isn't enough to give like full extensions, but this is now the 7th bar, I believe, or 6th bar. I think the 7th bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, this is the 7th bar. We have our actual flip at 5.4, but this is the 7th bar based on this little structure here. So I want to see if it can slightly exhaust or expand. There's the 30-second interval here. We're trading just beneath 9.6 at 6795.75. Highest odd was 154, but we'll have to see. If they end up stalling here, though, this is where they could start really reducing range. So it is pretty important that they at least test 9.6 here and make even a slightly higher high, even if it's only to like 9.650, 9.7. Otherwise, volatility could start to rise just before 2. I think MARA is getting this retest here too. Tesla starting to reduce range here too. There's a bit of a 3-bar reversal there. This is the 7th, so 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to watch the 5-7 stick ahead of 2 o'clock. 30-second turnaround here is trying its best not to break down. Like back to 9.4. We'll see if it can hold 9.4 at least. Do you guys see how heavy this 9.6 mark is on ES? Sometimes they do like final second turnarounds too. Do you guys see how the 7th bar is a battle between bulls and bears? So usually the 4th bars, 7th bars, 10th bars. So 4th was this one here. You see how it pushed 9.4. 7th, you see how it tried, it couldn't push 9.6, but it sustained 9.4. This will for sure be the period where they're gonna either make or break these ranges, either above 9.6 or beneath 9.4. Hi, Booth. Which either way, both of this would still be before 2 o'clock, so. NQ is still stalling beneath these ranges, though. That's also a sign of potentially stalling here. Maybe you guys are right. Maybe they don't take it out before 2. Yes. Does anyone change their mind in terms of odds for 2, or are you guys sticking with your vote? What was your vote next? It depends, Brendan, too, because you know how 1 p.m. period failed to get that proper structure? They could try to negate by getting a good break for 159. Does that make sense? So, but I think the 57, this is the 10th bar here, they'd have to try testing 9.6 here at 5.7 would be my thoughts. Or at least get like that break off the 10th or 11th bar. This is the 10th, this is the 11th bar, so 5.7, 5.8. So far they're still stalling 9.6 at 9.575. We'll see if the 11th bar here gets any sort of structure breaks. 67.50 breaks first attempt. Where's SPX trading at right now? We said that the 67.96 is SPX 67.50 area, right? Like if it breaks 9.7, 50, 9.8. This is pretty close call. So I think because of the odds at 1 and how they didn't have that proper structure close for 12.59, I think, Brendan, you could be right. And then if they push, it might be like a minute after, like once that new window opens up. Does that make sense? Or the other theory was if they break, you could see volatility to offset that 12.59 volatility by giving a good stick at 1:59 p.m. Does that make sense? So they'd push it here, like right now, to basically offset that risk that happened off that 12.59, and then we could see some 2 p.m. volatility. So just be prepared, guys. There could be some volatility in the next 2 to 3 minutes. There's usually odds around 204 anyway, too, that we can watch for. So I voted yes on the 7.696 break before, too, but we'll have to see. They could easily stall here, too. NQ is also still stalling, so that's another sign. 67.96 retest here at 159. 20 seconds left in this candle here. They're making this extremely tight before the 2 o'clock period. No breaks before 2. Stall at 1:59 p.m. The new window did open up here though, and they did close above 9.4 but beneath 9.6. That's probably something worth noting. I would think that we would see some sort of volatility though in the next few minutes. I feel like another reason why they stalled too is because 5.7 never got that test of 9.6, and this period here had a bit of a higher odd than 5.9. Volatility off the 2 p.m. stick. Is this helping you guys understand price action a little bit better, at least? I know the ranges aren't very wide, but this should help you understand how like price can either be constructive or not, or how you can see like delays, especially if like we only have so much range to work with, right? So we had odds because they held 67.90.5, 67.90.75. They reduced odds because we never had a good opening price, okay? So this is a little bit of a better opening price for this period here. Even though it's not above 9.6, it's still above 9.4. Okay, so your odds could be a little bit better now for the 2 p.m. period. Probably have the highest odds between the 2 to 2:30 period anyway. And that's usually the case if they're compressing range, okay? So that's pretty obvious that they're compressing range here, especially if they haven't even taken out 9.6. But they at least met the 9.6 condition, which is what could keep us extended till 2:30, 3 o'clock. Do you get what I'm saying? Let's see if we get some post 2 p.m. volatility around the 2:04 to 2:08 period. It would be nice, though, if they did take out 9.6 like within the first 10 minutes of 2 o'clock, though. Okay? Because we don't want to keep stalling 9.6 either. We do have to break it at some point to have any sort of progression on the session today. Flips at 2:15. Okay. So we were fine to not break 9.6 as long as we tested it, okay, before 2. Does that make sense? Like during our mid-session period, between basically 12:30 and 1:30. But we don't want to start stalling 9.6 now after 2 o'clock. Does that make sense? Okay, because that could really decrease odds and start increasing risk. So you're starting to run a little bit tight on time at this point to not even test 9.6, because technically you need at least 9.750. Does that make sense? 9.6 breaking here just ahead of that 2:04. I want to see if they can try testing this 9.750 area here during this time period. I think this would help our odds a little bit in terms of getting some extended range this afternoon during our 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. period. And if they want to make the last hour pinnable, I don't really care, like in the zone, as long as we can meet our ranges here. 6.796 break here ahead of 2:04. They're stalling 9.7. I want to see if they can test 9.750. 9.750, 9.8 have a lot of confluence. Once we get breaks of 9.9, that's going to be a 32 to 33 point break on the session. Once we can get a 32, 33 point break on the session, which is 6,800.5. Is 34 points from lows, 13 points from open, I think. right? Is that 13 points from open, guys? Where do they open again? I think it's around 13 points from open, either 12 or 13 points. That's where we can start getting 17, 22 point ratios and 44 point ratios, okay? They're not going to get that, though, until they break that. So basically, them stalling 9.6, 9.7, 9.8 is the same thing as them stalling beneath 32 or 13. Does that make sense? Off lows and OR. So, and you don't really want that if you want to get some extended breaks. Really clean stick break here on MARA, finally getting a snap. That's the exact kind of stick you want to see. 2009 close. 2009 is the calculated price on this to have a close above, open above break. This could give it a really good odd of getting that 2018 to 2019 test on MARA. This should mean that crypto is getting close to maybe coming back and retesting this 126K mark. I think XOM also just got that 114.32 break. We'll see if ES can get some tests here at 07.08. That's a really nice stick. NQ is still stalling beneath this 25,238, 243. So it's kind of the same idea as the overhead of 9.7, 9.8. I could see that. Let's just see what they do here off the 7, 8 marks. Is a 7? I'm getting hungry, so I hope they at least can test this range here soon. Well, these are really calculated spots on NQ, so it kind of stalled just beneath them. Like around 238. Also, like them stalling just beneath here before too. Same thing with ES stalling just beneath 9.6. Do you see how that could reduce range by like that 1.25, whatever it is that we needed to break? So like for instance right here, do you see this? Like this kind of close, instead of maybe closing right here. Right, and then getting that reduction. All of these are what could prevent you from getting like a 9.7, 9.8 break. 208 getting some reduction on this stick here. Back to 9.4. This is what could keep this, again, sideways all the way through till this 224, 230 period. 2 to 3 o'clock definitely has better odds than 1 p.m. did, so but that doesn't mean that we can't see back and forth price action. We definitely could. At least 3 longed. 6668. That's still 30 points in range. I think this is still a good day, but it just gets shitty once we're above 97.5 but beneath 9699, because that's when they can start tightening. But at least we're aware of that. Some slight stalls here. And this is where they can kind of keep this a bit back and forth. Try not to get chopped up in these ranges here. You should just be managing positions. I guess if you want to have short hedges off of 9.6, you could. Just be a little bit cautious though, because they could obviously stick it right back up. Shorts only extend once they come back beneath 90, 50, and 88 at this point. Because like I said, you'd probably want more constructive PA above this 88 to 90.5, right? So start deleting some of these. There's typically odds at 218. I didn't mark it, but like 218, 221, those could be some early periods. I would say maybe for at least retesting like 96, 97, since they haven't even cleared 9750 yet. That might be a little bit better for odds than waiting till 230 to even test there. Does that make sense? Like getting maybe closer to here at this point in time would give you some better odds of finally clearing and testing here at this point in time. Okay. I'm just gonna grab something really quick because I'm pretty hungry. 9.6 retest here off 212. See if they get some good structure breaks for 215, 216. Probably back over the 9.6 mark. I'll be right back. Okay, let's see here. NQ is getting pretty close to retesting, guys, so maybe we do get those breaks for 224 ahead of 230 on NQ. Not sure about ES getting the breaks before 230, but we'll see. It's at least coming back to retest. It sustained off 9.4 this time, so some decent odds it could get that 9.6 retest. I wanted it to try retesting 9.6. Basically, if it can close up, are you guys listening? If we can get some closing sticks above 9.6 before 230, it can help offset this closing stick right here. Does that make sense? Like at 9.3, because or at 9.525, and this 9.375. So it could help offset the risk just a tiny, tiny bit. NQ retesting this 25.236 mark. I've got 23875 as the overhead here. We'll see if they can get some structure breaks ahead of 230. On ES, it would be some structure breaks ahead of 230 above 9.6. Otherwise, it's going to keep this sideways. We're basically stuck beneath 9.798, above 8.8. Median points at 91, basically 90.75, and this 9.2 to 9.4 area. Another way you could think about this is they're keeping it basically just a few points above here. 2.25 has been a very common reduction range, higher low range today on the session. It's kind of like this area here is probably going to align us to that 67.99, 6,800 mark, okay? So once we start getting some higher structural breaks here, maybe of at least 3 points, we have some higher odds of testing that 6,800. So far this is implying odds of getting to 67.99. Let's see. What time is it? Hold on, I want to just double check something. Where is... Basically, it's trying to reset this period here, okay? So let's see. It doesn't even necessarily need to take out 9.7 here before 230, but at least get a better closing stick, maybe closer to 9.6. So that would probably be off the 2.829 marks. Thank you. Do you guys see how they brought it back to these exact price points just ahead of 230? Are you looking at this? 228 getting a retest of 9.6 here. This is the exact kind of price action you'd want to see ahead of 230 just so that it can at least help reset our odds to keep us extended through 3 p.m. just in case we don't get those structure breaks that we're looking for between 230, 236, 238. NQ finally got that structure break here too, off 228. So I wanted to see if they could try testing this area here before 230. There it is, 25.2375 being tested on NQ ahead of 230. ES getting a 6796 break here ahead of 230. This gives us better odds for resetting. And maybe getting a retest. We don't necessarily need the retest, but it would be nice if they did. That's a good closing stick at 28 for NQ, because this is what could keep the odds of 25, 270, 271 in play on the session for this one today. So this is the 2-9 stick. We want to basically see if they could, at the very least, try closing above here. So there's not much time left. If they keep it stuck, this is what could keep it a little bit sideways. See if they push it the final few seconds. So far, they're still keeping it beneath 9.4, beneath 9.6, above 9.4. If nothing really progresses during this period, guys, what could that imply? If we don't really see any progression. Yeah, and probably some more delays. So this actually closed a little bit lower, but what could they do off the 230 stick that they failed to do off the 2 o'clock stick? So especially since it had a lower close, what do they have to do here to offset risk since this closed a little bit lower than it did at 159?